Imagine this. The air feels heavy. It's getting dark. And then you hear it. A voice. Sounds familiar. Maybe someone you know calling you. You probably want to respond, right? Because it sounds like someone you trust. But what if that voice, that familiar sound, is actually a lure? A tool used by something focused on, well, messing with your head. Tonight we're diving into 5 pretty chilling firsthand accounts. Stories about the Skinwalker. And look, our goal here isn't really to explain them away, fact-check every detail. It's more about sharing these unsettling experiences, finding the common threads of terror, deceit, manipulation that run through the lore.
And maybe before we jump into the stories themselves, it's important to have a bit of context. We're not just talking about some random monster here. In Navajo culture, the entity people often call a Skinwalker or Iyo no Lushi is, well, it's believed to be a person. A spiritual practitioner, maybe a healer gone bad, someone who's used forbidden magic, essentially, to gain the power to shapeshift.
Right, and that detail that it was potentially human once, acting with, real malice that makes it so much worse, doesn't it? It means the mind games, the psychological stuff, it's all deliberate. It's intelligent.
Exactly. And probably the most terrifying tactic they use is manipulating your senses, which brings us neatly to our first account. Let's call it the Midnight Caller.
Okay, so this one involves 2 friends. They're walking home late through a park. It's dark. Path runs alongside some woods. And then suddenly, this sound just cuts through the quiet. A woman screaming, really raw, desperate. She's yelling, "Help me for the love of God. Please, someone help me." Yeah, you'd freeze too, right? The scream sounds like it's coming from the trees, really close. But then the fear gets mixed with confusion because the screen starts repeating the exact same phrase over and over. But it sounds distorted, kind of corrupted. And then it gets even weirder. That single scream multiplies. The narrator said it was like a choir of screams, all begging for help at the same time.
That distortion, the repetition, that's really key. It tells you something about how this thing operates. If it was a real person, the cries would change, wouldn't they? They'd evolve. This entity, it seems like it doesn't need perfect mimicry, just enough familiarity to make you hesitate, make you listen. But combined with that wrongness, that distortion, that really ramps up the dread.
And then the figure steps out. Human-shaped? Yeah, but totally wrong. Inhumanly tall, incredibly thin. It's standing on 2 legs. But get this, it has antlers sticking out of its skull. And the body is described as just twisted, contorted.
The visual itself is meant to break your reality, I think. It just violates all the rules of what a person or even an animal should look like.
They just screamed, "Oh my God, run!" and they bolted. But as they're running, this is the part that gets me. They hear the creature behind them mimic their panic. It screams, "Oh my God, run!" in the exact same tone, the same cadence the narrator just used. Why do that? Why mimic the escape command? Seems like it wouldn't help lure them back, Is it just taunting?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's pure taunting at that point. It's not about luring anymore. It's about psychological dominance, showing them, "I can hear you, I can be you," repeating their own panic back at them. It basically says, "I'm inside your head now, I control this." It's a classic psychological torture move, really, using your own voice against you.
Wow, okay, so if it can weaponize your voice, it can definitely weaponize trust, which leads us straight into how these things use deception, disorientation.
Yeah, if that last story was about messing with your hearing, these next couple really show how it can manipulate what you see, who you trust, to isolate people.
All right, take this story. A guy camping deep in the Australian outback, way out there, behind these rocky hills, tall, dead grass everywhere. Really disorienting place. He'd gone back towards camp, and suddenly he hears his friend, his mate, calling his name. Familiar voice, but the voice isn't coming from the camp. It's coming from away from the camp, deeper into the grass, into the dark.
And that creates this really dangerous conflict in your head, doesn't it? Your brain says, "That's my friend, I need to help," or "I need to go to him." But everything else, your sense of direction, the environment, is screaming, "This is the wrong way, this isn't safe." The entity seems to bank on that deep-seated need we have to respond to someone we care about.
So he's drawn trigger in, right? The voice keeps calling, maybe moving around, until suddenly his actual mate grabs him from behind, and the friend looks dead serious. The narrator's confused, asks how he got behind him, and the friend just whispers, "It isn't me." Then he says, "Bad spirit." And right on cue, the voice calls out again. The mate apparently explained that this happens out there. People get called away by voices they know. Sometimes if they're young or alone, they don't come back. So that friend, knowing the danger immediately, saved his life. Basically, you just can't trust your ears out there.
And you definitely can't always trust your eyes either, which brings us to this next one. The neighbor's double.
Okay, this happens super late, like 2 a.m. The person telling the story steps outside their house for a smoke. Their house is right by some woods. And they notice their neighbor, someone named Cheyenne, just standing there, motionless, at the edge of the trees, staring right at them.
That setup is already unnerving, right? Alone, late at night, edge of the woods. But then the environment itself starts feeling weird. The narrator said the air got thick, heavy, and there was a strange metallic smell, like pennies or ozone. That smell comes up sometimes in these kinds of accounts.
So he closes his eyes for just a second, maybe rubbing smoke out or something, and when he opens them again, the figure, the Cheyenne, is suddenly right there, like impossibly close. It crossed the distance in seconds, and when it waved, the movement wasn't smooth or normal. It was described as a jerking wave, like he didn't quite know how joints are supposed to work. That little detail, that subtle wrongness.
That's textbook uncanny valley. That feeling you get when something looks almost human, but there's just something fundamentally off about it. Your brain recognizes it as familiar, human-like, but at the same time it's screaming, danger. Wrong.
He scrambles inside, locks the doors, probably freaking out, and then he sees it, standing right at the window.
Yeah.
And up close, he sees its jaws kind of drooping. It looked like Shao, yeah, but like a bad copy.
Yeah.
Not quite right.
That's just devastating psychological warfare, isn't it? Showing you a flawed, nightmarish copy of someone you know and trust. It creates instant dread, paranoia. It makes you question everything. If your neighbor can be duplicated like that, what else isn't real? What else can you not trust?
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the mimicry, the deception, but sometimes it's just about raw physical horror, impossible transformations. Right, let's talk about the jackal on the dirt road. This happened late at night, eastern Wyoming. Some high school kids, they're lost, driving down some remote road, and they see this big black shape in the middle of the road ahead. They figure it's roadkill, a deer or something big enough to wreck the car if they hit it.
That assumption is the starting point for the shock, isn't it? Thinking it's dead, inanimate. The creature uses the mundane as camouflage, almost.
Exactly, because then the shape stirs,
Yeah.
and then it just stands up. And it's huge, like 7 feet tall. It's got thick, dark fur, kind of a human male shape to the body.
Yeah.
But the head is completely wrong, not human at all, like a jackal or maybe a German shepherd. Pointed ears, glowing eyes. That immediate shock going from thinking dead animal to giant standing predator.
Yeah.
It's a whole different kind of fear tactic.
It absolutely is. The threat level just skyrockets instantly. And there's more. The creature was apparently holding a dead rabbit. It flings the rabbit away, then takes this deliberate step towards their car. It's not just standing there being weird. It's showing intent, aggression. It's confirming, yes, I'm this big, and yes, I'm hostile, big enough to maybe get through the car.
Okay, our last source tonight kind of brings all these elements together. We've got the location-based lure, messing with sounds, and then a physical reveal. This one's set in the southern Utah desert, near these deep canyons and old sacred Anasazi ruins.
And it's worth noting the Navajo traditionally avoid those ruins. There are stories, beliefs that the Anasazi, the ancient ones, vanished into another dimension there. So it raises this possibility that these entities might be drawn to places that already have this spiritual weight or maybe danger associated with them.
The narrator felt this really strong pull, almost obsessive, to climb down into the ruins, like they were meant to go there. That's the first kind of lure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mental, before anything else even happens. So they resist that pull, partly because they hear a growl, maybe think it's a mountain lion, but later the group hears something else. It's described as a growl and then a horse laugh, like a lion mixed with a hyena. And one person in the group heard it, like right next to his ear.
Being able to place a sound like that, something so complex and impossible right beside someone, that's a very sophisticated way to mess with senses. It's primal threat mixed with pure mockery.
Then they try to camp. And the real noise starts. The whole canyon fills with this rhythmic clacking sound. Rocks banging together like Morse code coming from everywhere. It goes on until someone finally shouts, "Shut up!" and it stops instantly. Only to start again, but way worse. Now the rock clacking is mixed with just this awful chorus of animal sounds. Wolves, coyotes, owls, monkeys screeching, even terrible zebra cries. Imagine that cacophony in the dark. It's clearly meant to just overwhelm them, cause panic.
Yeah.
And it worked. They packed up and got out of there fast.
And later, the narrator's mother apparently told them the local lore. Spirits in those ruins lure people up to the cliffs to push them off, which just confirms the goal behind all that sensory chaos. It's always about isolation, disorientation, leading to physical danger.
So this whole experience, understandably, leaves the narrator really shaken up, jumpy, paranoid. Weeks later, they're working a third shift job way off in Salt Lake City, nowhere near the canyon. and it seems like the entity isn't done. It shows up again. That persistence is terrifying, too. This time, it looks like a dog, limping, described as having the body form of a greyhound, but walking weirdly. More like a person moving on hands and feet, with this odd swaying motion. It had bloody legs, eyes that were too big, bad teeth, and it made this kind of whistle growl like it was taunting them.
You know, in a lot of shapeshifter legends from various cultures, the transformation isn't always perfect. There are often tells, flaws in the disguise.
And that's exactly it. That's the final chilling detail. The narrator realizes this thing, this creature, that looks mostly like a dog. It doesn't have a tail. And that missing tail, that's apparently a known characteristic in Navajo stories about skinwalkers. That one imperfect detail just shatters the illusion completely. It confirms what they're dealing with. So if you put all these 5 accounts together, you start to see a pattern, right? A method.
Yeah.
It seems like this Skinwalker or whatever these entities are, they're maybe less about immediate physical attack and more focused on just breaking down your mind first, causing total cognitive collapse.
Exactly. It exploits everything you rely on. Your trust in your own ears, your own eyes, your trust in the people you know, even your trust in the basic laws of nature, how things are supposed to look and move. It takes the familiar, your voice, a friend's face, a normal animal, and twists it, weaponizes it, turns your own certainty into a vulnerability.
Which kind of leaves you with a really unsettling thought, doesn't it, for you listening right now? If this thing is defined by its ability to perfectly mimic loyalty, how long would you stand there in the dark, listening to that familiar voice calling for help? How long before you realized it wasn't help they wanted, that it was actually a trap? Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive into these frankly terrifying accounts. Thank you for joining us. If these stories gave you the chills, maybe look into the lore a bit more. There's a lot out there about these unsettling tales and their history. And hey, if you appreciate this kind of exploration into scary stories and weird cases, please do like, share, and subscribe to Horror Docs. We'll be back soon with another unsettling case to dig into. Until then, stay safe out there.